welcome to the D3D4 Football Podcast with me, your host, James Richards. Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday, the 26th of April. I do hope everyone is well who is listening to this and coping through this current unprecedented crisis that we are going through. We are back for another podcast today looking at League One, the strengths and weaknesses of all 23 teams in the division. I am joined by my co-hosts Ed Walker and Chris Stringer to go through this. We'll be going alphabetically and starting with Accrington Stanley. And obviously a big strength for Accrington Stanley, Ed, is Jordan Clark and his performances, but as a team, they're doing pretty damn well.
They have done pretty damn well. They've kind of, I suppose you could say, they're kind of overachieving again, considering the size of the club compared to others in the division. Particularly noteworthy thing for me, looking at the data, is the number of chances they've created. More than 200, which is actually the fifth best in the whole division. And that's roughly meant that, according to the data, you'd expect them to score about 63 goals this season, which is the third best. They have only scored 47, which is a lot less than that. But they're kind of around the amount of goals you'd expect to concede. And so because of that, I think they're in quite a strong position at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, their obvious strength is their football and the number of chances they create. Their weakness is they don't take them. But because they're creating so many, it's kind of putting them in a position where they're not looking in danger of relegation or struggling. And a great strength as well, which we always talk about, is their chairman is really caring about the club, the fans, and himself are, united, I suppose. There's a great feeling of togetherness at Accrington Stanley. Away fans feel it acutely when they go there. They always enjoy their away days. So that is very, very important. It's a community club that people really emulate a positivity from going to see. So that's a massive positive. And that I do think that has an effect on the playing side of things. But yeah, biggest strength, of course, creativity. The technical players that they do have, I hope they keep a few of them, but I think Jordan Clark will be one that goes. Weaknesses, they need to be a little bit more clinical. But you have to say they do very well to recruit players under the radar with the budget they've got who keep them in contention. AFC Wimbledon, strengths and weaknesses, they're about where we expect them to be according to the data, Chris.
Yeah, they're 20th in the league. Their XG suggests that they should be 18th. Expected goals 43. Expected goals against is 68, which would put them 21st in the table. So they've pretty much averaged out there. Their XG maybe it's low, and they are low in the table as a result of quite a few chances created. But they have got a few reasons for hope, I think. Marcus Forss and Joe Pigott have looked like really, really impressive players this season, I think.
Yeah, I think their big strength was bringing in Marcus Forss, actually. I think utilising that line of recruitment has done them really well. Also, strength of character as a squad. They've got Glyn Hodges as their manager. He embeds a bit of spirit in that team. Yeah,
I think that's true, and we've discussed before that it's low in the table, and maybe that's slightly disappointing. But they are limited by their facilities at the moment. So to stay in League One's a solid position, and reason for hope is this new development they've got with the new stadium.
Yeah, let's hope that all goes through. But I think, yeah, you're right. In their current guise, AFC Wimbledon are doing extremely well to even be in League One. And, in a position of 20th, which, they've created the 20th most chances in the division. So it suggests that is exactly where they ought to be. And I look forward to them having a thriving future when they move back to Merton Stadium. I know they've had funding issues. I hope they find a way of resolving that. I'm sure they will. But let's hope for better things for them. Blackpool, Ed, strengths and weaknesses. It's difficult because, of course, they are in a new era now with Neil Critchley coming in. Yep. Simon Grayson, I mean, we've discussed it before. His tactics may be slightly negative for the technicians that they had in that team.
Perhaps so, yeah. I think when you have Liam Feeney, who I think has produced the most assists all season for any player.
And crosses, so I think in accurate crosses, he's like hundreds ahead of anyone else. I think he tops the
assist chart as well, I'm pretty sure, if I'm reading as well. Yeah. So he's been excellent. But Blackpool, their chances created puts them mid-table. Their expected goals compared to their goals scored is very similar. Their expected goals conceded compared to their goals against is very similar. So being 13th is kind of where you'd expect them to be, I guess.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. I think physically, they're a side that do have some pretty good physical players. Obviously Curtis Tilt was there and was excellent. Nandue up front, who has been, I think, a great strength all season for them, because if you have a striker who can score your goals, you're always capable.
Well, when you've got that combination of Feeney putting the crosses in and then Nandue, who is almost unstoppable in the air when he's on his game, it's a great combination. It's so effective.
Very interesting to see how Neil Critchley does there. Highly thought of at Liverpool. A lot of praise. We have seen coaches who don't have senior management experience struggle, but I'm hoping he's not one of them. And yeah, interesting to keep an eye on them maybe for next season. Bolton Wanderers. We'll start, Chris, with the weaknesses, because they have so many.
Yeah, I think Bolton is the weakness. They are just a weak side. But really, given the drama that they had over the summer with trying to change ownership and potentially actually going out of existence entirely, they'll be pleased to have a club. I think they've tried to develop a little bit of a squad this season that can sort them out next season. But yeah, away points, 23rd in the table. Home points a little bit better, 20th. And then every other metric puts them 22nd or 23rd XG against. They're just a weak side.
Well, they started the season, didn't they, with a youth team. They've obviously had no real pre-season. They then lost their manager. They got Keith Hill in, but they had to do all their recruitment in like a half an hour period just before the end of the transfer window. Obviously, still a lot of difficulties to get the team back on their feet. Don't create any number of chances. Very weak on the road. The list is extensive. I mean, those away fans have to say, Bolton, if you're a Bolton fan, you listen to this and you travel away, commendable.
Yes.
Commendable. I think you've had
that trip to Wickham at the start of the season.
Yeah, 6 points they've got from 17 games away from home this season, which is the worst record. Wow. Probably in the EFL, but certainly in League One. Their home form's not much better either. 20 points from 17 games would put them 20th in the division. So, but yeah, and they created only 119 chances this season. So that puts them at the bottom of the table. Their XG is only 34. And they've actually underperformed that, which is quite an achievement in itself. So, but the strengths, I think, is their fan base. So they've always got the potential to grow. I do think, and this may be controversial, that Keith Hill will be a strength for them going forward because his experience. But he told me, and I'm sure he's right, if you've got to get rid of the negative mentality going into next season.
It'll be interesting to see how they keep some of their young players as well, because people like Dennis Politic have really impressed this season in the difficulty they've had. So potentially looking to next season, if they do go down to League Two and they can keep hold of him, it'd be something quite exciting to watch.
He will indeed. We move on to Bristol Rovers. Weaknesses. Anything that happened after Graham Coughlin left.
Yep.
Strengths. Johnson Clark Harris.
Right, that's that done. Let's move on.
That's pretty simple, really.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, they were performing well beyond themselves under Coughlin at the start of the season. But I actually think they've got some really good young players. I mean, is it Alfie Kilgore who looks quite...
He's been good.
Yeah.
Tony Craig alongside him as well. That centre-back pair looked quite good at times.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if Clark Harris isn't there, they struggle. And you do worry for them a bit. I think...
And he's injury prone.
I mean, their weakness is the fact that didn't they have 24 million quid's worth of debt? Is that right?
25, I think it was. Yeah.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
That's good going.
That's very good going. I mean, it's mostly owed to their owners, to be fair. So that's which is not uncommon. But they need a new stadium. That is a huge weakness for them. The facilities that Bristol Rovers have is probably what's holding them back, because they've got a fan base that could grow, you think, exponentially in Bristol.
How long have they needed this stadium for, though?
So I remember speaking to a Tyrannosaurus Rex who was a Bristol Rovers fan, and he was talking about them getting a new stadium back then. So it's quite a long time.
Yeah.
Right, so we'll leave Ed to do this next one. Burton Albion.
I'm going to go for a little run for half an hour.
Yes, this might get long.
I'll try to keep it brief.
The truncated version, please.
No. The season, we can talk about the expected goals. They're kind of matching what you'd expect really with the goals conceded and the goals scored. But I think for me, I look at this, and it's been the case with Burton for a couple of years, where it's about the squad depth. A real positive to me is the depth we have in wide positions. We've had the likes of Lucas Akins, Jamie Murphy's come in there, Sarkic has been out there, Broadhead's been out there. These are all players who want to get the ball down and run at people. And it's probably been the main attacking contribution we've had, especially in the back half of the season after losing Liam Boyce, which has been probably perhaps the turning point in the entire season, where that goal scorer has just disappeared out of the team, unfortunately. Midfield 3 as well, been really solid at times. Scott Fraser, Ryan Edwards, Joe Powell's come into there, Stephen Quinn as well. But the weakness to me, and the reason we're not currently in a playoff battle, is the defence, and particularly the lack of depth in defence. We've got, I think, 3 natural centre-backs on our books at the minute. And we're just being forced to play people out of position. We've got Lucas Akins still spending far too much time at right back. Our 2 left backs at the minute, neither of them look particularly brilliant. One's very young and naive, still with his positioning, and the other one...
I like Colin Daniel.
Colin Daniel does not understand how to defend.
Yeah.
He doesn't. He's very good going forwards, and if he can get the crosses in, he can do it. But I don't think there's very little faith in him defensively.
Indeed. Well, and Scott Fraser obviously not going to re-sign a contract. Is that right?
No, he's not, which is a loss.
And Boyce going to
Yep.
Scotland, to Scottish football. Where's he gone? Has he gone to Hearts or Hibs?
He went to Hearts, and they've
Hearts.
just got relegated now because of what's happened in Scotland. So
Oof.
he's going to be tearing the second division apart next season because he's far too good for that league.
Indeed. Well, you did well not to make that too long. Coventry
Yeah,
City.
you can breathe now.
That's it. Yeah, he can screw up his 25-page of notes just on Burton. We're moving on to Coventry. Now, we did have Coventry fans give us some insight on Twitter. Let me just bring that up. It's from Jamie McAllister. He said Coventry City strengths, rock solid defence, weaknesses, not enough goals. Seems pretty simple, but yeah. Jack Greenfield said, I think the middle of the season we were probably guilty of overplaying and trying to walk the ball in the 6 weeks prior to the end of the season. I think we've adapted and changed that up slightly. And Spud has said Coventry City's strengths, Mark Robins' style of football and leadership. Weaknesses is Sisu don't invest enough money and don't communicate with the fans. Oh, and they can't stop themselves trying to sue the world, which is never good if you're trying
the experts in suing that haven't won a lawsuit since they took over.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. The self-appointed experts. That's what that proves. Right, indeed. But Coventry City recruitment, that is one of their strengths, definitely. Style of football, strengths, and their academy is their strengths because they get a lot of players through their academy. They get a lot of players who are very good on loan through their recruitment networks. I think they've done an excellent job there. Liam Walsh, obviously, coming in. Callum O'Hara, another one that comes to mind. But, the guys they recruited, like Matt Godden, has been excellent. And they've had injury problems as well. Imagine if a fit Jody Jones in this team. So massive to see them. I mean, not scoring enough goals, I'd say that's probably fair. Their XG suggests they would have been 16th in the table. But their XG against leaves them 4th. So that defence is absolutely rock solid.
The data's amazing.
Yeah, they've only conceded 30 goals, which is the best record.
I would say as well, one of the things I find with the lack of goals is I do quite like that system, but often having that one striker, even if it is Matt Godden, sometimes when you're trying to hit with the counter-attack, it's a bit difficult to have a lot of runners. Because they get the ball in midfield with the likes of, say, Callum O'Hare, and you've often just got Godden running off. And whilst he has got good movement, it'd be nice to get a couple of other players forwards, because there aren't really any wingers in this team. You have the wing-backs.
Yeah, they're good wing-backs.
They are good wing-backs.
Fankati Dabo, what a player. I mean, really, he's that standout player, too good for this league. And, Coventry, you could argue, probably are too good now for League One in the way they've played, but they need... I hope for their sake this season gets finished somehow. There was talk as well of this, and we won't go into it in detail because we're strict time scales today. But this idea of an 8-team mini tournament to decide the season.
I mean, I sort of get where they're coming from, but what?
Yeah, in League One it kind of works, but not League Two. No. It doesn't work in League Two, but that's another story.
We'll talk about that at a later date, probably when there's more conclusive evidence that that's actually something that's going to happen. Moving on, Doncaster. Chris, they're at 9th position. On chances created, 158, they would be 14th. Their XG is 46. Obviously, I've rounded all these up to make it easier, but they'd be 15th based on that XG. Goals against would be 43. So, they've slightly overperformed in terms of the goals for, because, they'd be 6th based on the number of goals they've scored. And the goals against defence is a huge strength for them this season. But I'd say probably the loss of John Marquez and some really attacking, talented players has left them looking a bit short. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, took the words out of my mouth, really. They're, I think they're slightly underperforming on where they'd like to be. But then actually the data shows that they're overperforming on maybe what you'd expect. They've scored more than their XG would suggest, and they've conceded less than their XG against would suggest. But the big loss is John Marquis, and they've never really replaced him.
Well, I think Ben Whiteman said it when he joined us on the pod, when he was saying that considering what they lost, to be in contention, they've had a superb season.
Absolutely.
In that context. Yeah, and he's been, obviously Ben Whiteman should be just a player in the strengths column. He's been superb, and James Coppinger as well just continues to be a Rolls Royce in that midfield. Yeah, well, it's just amazing. I mean, he's older than I am, and I struggle to do 3 laps of the garden. I don't, honestly.
Yeah, have you done your 5k yet?
Yes. Please don't ask me. I haven't got any evidence to prove it, but yes, I have. Moving on to Fleetwood, strengths and weaknesses. Is Joey Barton a strength, Ed, or a weakness?
I think depends what day it is. Yeah. I think it's the best way to put it. But, Fleetwood they're actually a very solid team, and they've kind of quietly gone about their business this season, which has left them in the playoff places. And they're slightly below the number of goals you'd expect them to score. XG has them at 55, they've scored 51, but they're expected to concede 39, they concede 38. And they've just got a really good balance of a good home form and a good away form as well, which is both in the top 6 of the division, and it's just got them into a really nice position. But I mentioned Harry Souter a lot. I think he's a fantastic player on loan from Stoke at the back.
Yeah, because Stoke couldn't have done with a player like that, could they?
Oh, definitely. But it's just nice. They've actually got Ched Evans, Barry Mackay, Paddy Madden up top, Connolly in midfield, Gunn Whelan in midfield. It's just a really nicely balanced squad, and it's doing well this season.
Big strength is the balance of their squad, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, really good to see them perform. Do they have any glaring weaknesses, do you think? I think they're a well-rounded team. I think they're one of those sides that they don't have. I
just wonder about maybe if they made the playoffs, that lack of experience of that kind of thing might hold them back when compared to other teams. But do you know what? There really isn't that much wrong with them, especially when at home they're just so difficult to get past.
Yeah, I think the biggest weakness is that goal music.
Oh.
Yeah.
Can we really call that a weakness?
Well, the strength is their away end.
Yeah,
that's away end.
Yeah, that's right. So there you go. Extra points there for that. Gillingham, strengths and weaknesses. Well, I will say this. I've watched them several times this season, and the biggest weakness they have is you look at them after each match that they've played and you go, how the hell do they not win that? And that is their biggest weakness. They are not clinical enough. They've created 174. Yeah, they have, exactly. They've created 174 chances, which would leave them 10th based on that metric. Their XG is 57. That would put them 4th, but they've only scored 42 goals, which is the 15th best in the league. So there lies their biggest strength and weakness. Obviously, a big strength is their defence. 4th best in terms of goals against in the division. Home, I think their away record is superb as well. They'd be 7th based on away form, 21 points from 18 games. But the biggest weakness is they just have not been clinical. They've created a medium number of chances, but they're good quality, and they are not taking them. And that it passes the eye test, doesn't it?
Is it fair to say they haven't replaced Tom Eaves? Is that a fair comment to say at the minute?
I think that is fair, yeah. And
yeah. Maybe John Akinde will.
I do like John Akinde, but I don't know if he's quite.
He's not the same player as Eaves, is he?
No, he's not. No.
Do you think losing Jakubiak hurt them?
Yep, I do. I think, well, based on the way he was performing early doors, I think Gillingham fans may be able to offer a bit more insight into how he performed. Did it tail off? Was it worth keeping him or letting go or whatever? But I certainly think their recruitment has been a strength, and I think obviously that back line, Ogilvie, Emma, and is it Jack Tucker? I mean, that's a great young player they've got there. So definite positive season for them. But if they'd taken their chances, who knows? They could have been a lot closer to the playoffs. Now, Ipswich, that will be an interesting one as we move on to them. A lot of their fans would say weakness Paul Lambert, and perhaps the the lack of investment from a boardroom level, possibly. But they're not. They've
had a lot of. They've spent quite a bit on players though.
Yeah, I mean they shed quite a lot of their bigger contract. I mean Alan Judge is a massive strength. I think he plays, and Flynn Downs are they're two players that I really like. I think could clearly go to a higher level.
I think Luke Garbutt's been good as well this season at left back.
Yeah, as an Oxford fan, I will never like Luke Garbutt.
And James Norwood, I mean, he can't be cheap either.
No, I mean he's been a very good player for them. I mean the biggest strength has got to be their away form. 29 points from 19 games. Yeah. That would leave them third in the table. Defensively, they've only conceded 36, so that's enough for a playoff place based on that metric. But style of play, lack of cutting edge, these are the biggest weaknesses.
I think injuries has taken its toll as well. You look through the squad, they haven't had Vincent Young for a long time. They've had Hughes come and go.
He was performing superbly, wasn't he?
Teddy Bishop's been out for a long time. Danny Rowe's been out for a long time. Freddie Sears has been out for a long time. You know, a fully fit squad possibly could have been a different story this season, but
they also can't play at home.
5-year contract for Paul Albert. Not the best timing either.
They cannot play at home.
People. No, you're right. They've not been great at Portman Road. But again, I'm not that surprised at that because I think that when teams go to places like Portman Road, they up their game a bit, and I think it's especially Ipswich coming with their historical background of where they've been in their club history. I mean, you'd say that historically and size-wise, Championship is probably their natural place, but they've won.
Spent 20 years there, didn't they, or something?
Won European football competitions. Bobby Robson got them runners-up twice.
They're a big club. They are a big club.
Yeah,
not just in East Anglia, but in the whole of England. They are a big club. We accept they easy to accept that.
Yeah, certainly is. Lincoln City, position 15th. Chances created would put them 15th. XG would put them 12th. XG goals against would put them 8th. Goals for 44, that would put them 13th. Goals against 46 would put them 14th. It all suggests they are where they should be. Biggest weakness is clearly, I think, they have not performed well at all away from home. 9 points from 18, 21st. That would put them in the away form table.
It's worth remembering how well they were and how much that momentum under Cowley carried into the start of the season.
I was going to say, I think
how good that start was, and under Cowley they looked destined for the Championship. And Appleton, I think, has done all right, but it's a
season of transition, isn't it?
It has been a drop off, and accepting life without Cowley now is going to take a bit of time, I think.
I think transitioning is a big weakness at any point in anyone's season. If you have a big transition, it is difficult to keep going, especially when you're transitioning from a style to another style. Quite distinct, Michael Appleton, and the way he wants to play, which suggests to me that he's going to need a lot of change of the personnel there to achieve that. And we've seen the start of it in January, but there'll be some rebuilding for sure. I think Lincoln's big strength has been their supporters. They always seem to back them really well, and that can't be sniffed at. That can't be sniffed at. We live in a football world where supporters are very, very quick to get on their team's back, and I think Michael Appleton may not have received the support he has based on the results he's got if he had been at a different club. Just my opinion. But Lincoln, I think, doing pretty well in terms of they're still on that upward curve. They're in League One for the first time in God knows how long, and they're going to be building. MK Dons sitting 18th. Ed, your opinion on these guys' strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah. Well, you look at their stats, and they've only scored 36 goals, which puts them 21st when they're expected to score 45. But I think a big part of that has been how long they've been without some of their strikers. They've had Reece Healy, whose form deserves so much mention recently, but Reece Healy's been out for a while. They've had Joe Mason out for a while. Carlton Morris has come in and looks quite good. I think at the start of the season, you were quite worried about the lack of attacking options they had available, which is part of the reason they were stuck in that relegation battle in the early stages. But they've returned back, and you're starting to see the quality they've got now. Alex Gilby in midfield as well.
Big strength is that I think they're ball carrying in midfield.
Yeah, definitely.
They keep possession well. I think they look really confident when in possession, and especially at home, they can dictate the tempo. Not always easy, but certainly.
Away form hasn't been particularly brilliant, though, has it? 9 points from 17 away, which is 20th best in the division. and that's probably what's held them back a bit.
Yeah, no, they have indeed. Yeah, they haven't been good on the road. Russell Martin knows that though. I spoke to him after they beat Bolton at home, and he was well aware that they need to improve on the road. But like Reece Healey, isn't it like on a game where you do like one of those little cheat codes, and you get like a striker in just for 10 minutes who just blitzes it? That's what he's like. I mean, he's just come back and he's just scoring every game.
Can't stop him at the minute.
No, exactly.
Just can't stop him.
He's been brilliant. So I think a brighter future expected for them next season. But they do need to work on their performances away from home. Oxford United, we have no weaknesses, so that's good. Our kit's superb.
Apart from Brentford in the transfer window, so we
yeah,
say that.
Brentford is, that word, I'm going to bleep that out. You understand that, right?
We're never allowed to mention Brentford again.
Right, bleep that out as well. It's going to take a long time to edit if you carry on like this, lads. Jeez. I think, position third, what a wonderful season it's been. 208 chances created is the third best in League One. Our XG is 10th best, which suggests that the clinical nature of Matty Taylor has a lot to do with how we're performing and overperforming our XG. Our defence, though, we've only conceded 39 goals in the XG ratings, which would put us second. Obviously, goals against 37, so in reality, that's the 7th best. But XG against is the second best in the division, and you probably wouldn't think that looking at us. Big strength away from home, 24 points from 18 games, 4th best in the league. I mean, our style of play, our recruitment's been excellent. Our weakness is perhaps depth at the back. Obviously, the size of club we are and the fact we're a selling club has cost us in January potentially. And our stadium is our biggest weakness because it is owned by a man who charges us massive rent to play in a stadium that's not even finished, and I'm not going to get into a rant about this. We're going to move on fairly quickly to Peterborough United. And Chris, you take this one?
Okay. Well, their chance created is fantastic, and that's translated into a really good number of goals. They're top in the goal table. They've scored 68 from 215 chances, and that's actually overperforming their XG of 56. Their goals against is still, it's not bad. You maybe want it to be a bit better if they want to push up to the higher points, into the automatic places. Conceded 40, that's 10th in the table. And I think a big strength of theirs is their home form. They're third in the table there. They've got 39 points from 17. And all of this comes down to the fact that they have some fantastic attacking players in even Tony and Mohamed Issa. It really doesn't get better than them.
No, Andrew Hinton on Twitter said, strength very obvious, best player in the league in Tony, depth in squad, particularly in midfield, solid manager, good pace throughout the team, weakness perhaps over-reliance on Tony, creative players Dembele and Smolik struggle when he's not in the team, and defending at left back he thinks is a weakness as well. I think overall though recruitment is pretty good strength of Peterborough. They always seem to pick up good players, and they play, like you say, good attacking depth, good attacking style, good recruitment. So a very solid season from Peterborough. Ed, you want to take the next team, which is
Pompey.
Portsmouth. Yeah, Pompey.
Well, as you mentioned a lot of times, Jez, I think one of the things that deserve praise for is that patience with Kenny Jackett. Because you go back to the start of the season and how under par it was, and there's all the questions about should he lose his job, should he be taken out of the role. They kept hold of him, and they're reaping the rewards at the minute. They're currently 4th for chances created with 207. XG has them on 63 goals. They've only scored 53, which is a bit below what they want. And their XG for conceded goals is 39. They've actually conceded 36. But their real strength is that home form. No one's beaten them yet at Fratton Park.
Ridiculous, that, isn't it?
Unbelievable.
42 points from 18 games. Only Wickham can match that. Crazy. Absolutely ridiculous that they've been able to do that. I mean, is it surprising? Maybe not. I grew up basically living at Fratton Park, watching teams go there. And it is at the time it wasn't that old fashioned, but years have gone by since then and it hasn't changed at all. So it is dated, but it gives you that great atmosphere. Teams struggle to impose their game on Portsmouth at Fratton Park, and that is showing in in the data, in the stats, and away points they've got 18 from 17 games, putting them 11th. So they're decent on the road.
You look at their squad, man to man. It's such a nicely balanced squad. At the back, you've got people like James Bolton, Sean Raggett, Burgess when he's available, Steve Seddon. Midfield, Tom Naylor, Cam McGee, and Andy Cannon. And then up front, you've got so many wide options: Curtis Harness, Ryan Williams, Ellis Harrison's part there as well. John Marquis is the third. It's a bit like Fleetwood. It's a really nicely balanced squad.
Yeah, Chave on Twitter said, Pompey, we have a strong young team, great attacking talent, and players seem to have a connection with the crowd. Jacket has adapted and fixed the issues that were causing problems at the start of the season. Weaknesses in defence, aside from goalkeeper, and no midfield drive. Dreadful when teams run at us and mentally suspect. I said to him, do you lack a creative midfielder? He said it's less about creation because the wingers do most of their creating. But it's all down the flanks, so they bypass the centre of the midfield a bit. So he seems to mention that they need a player like Brannigan. No, you're not having him. Smodics and Enna Bakari. I'd agree with that. I think maybe they do need a slightly different style of player to feed into the front men who can play in that middle section of the pitch. But again, not too many weaknesses for Portsmouth.
I think when you've got Ronan Curtis on that left wing, as good as he has been this season, you can kind of get away with not having that creative outlet in the centre.
That's right. Rochdale, strengths, they do try and play good football. I don't think their pitch is very conducive to it, to be honest. But they do have a number of glaring weaknesses, and that is, their XG is 36 goals, is what they've been expected to score. Now, because they've got Ian Henderson, they have slightly overachieved that, got 39, but that would put them 22nd in the league. Their chance created has them 17th, so slightly better than where they are. They concede a lot of goals. They've conceded 57 goals, 20th worst in the division. Not very good at home, 21st overall record, 19 points from 16 games. And just generally, I think, for a club that's lacking, I think, in budget to battle against other teams, if they didn't have Henderson, Ed, they'd be in a bit of bother.
I can't believe it. The reliance on Henderson, I don't think people fully understand it. If you're not a Rochdale fan or seen him a lot, that he doesn't seem to be. When's he going to stop being this good? It just seems to get better every year.
Well, do you remember Udinese had Di Natale, who just did it for
exactly.
years and years?
It is literally like that.
It is, isn't it? He is like the Di Natale of Rochdale.
How long's he been there now?
I don't know. Can he come through the youth ranks at Norwich? I think.
Yes, I think he did. Let me get this up quick.
He seems like he's been there forever.
He has been at Rochdale since 2013. I think he's now their all-time record goal scorer in the Football League.
I think
in League One, I think it is.
He's close to it. He's definitely close to it.
Yeah, I think he's the record goal scorer in League One, isn't he?
He's been there since 2013.
Wow. And Matty Lund this season's been fantastic as well.
Yeah, he's been a good addition. Rotherham, lots of strengths to talk about with them, but I think one of the big things is the connection that they have with their manager. They've been an excellent team over the last few years. I know they struggle to stay up in the Championship, but that's fine. Don't overspend. Don't put yourselves in jeopardy. If it means you come back down, it's better than the alternative, which is doing what Reading have done and basically get yourselves into massive debt by selling and forcing to sell your ground, your training ground.
They're so well run.
They are.
Are they the best run club in the EFL?
Shrewsbury fans might have something to say about that, but
Maybe.
They're not far off.
I'd also put Burton Swords on that, by the way.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
Yeah, I think there's a few good, well-run clubs. We talk a lot about the negative sides of owners, but there are some very good ones. Accrington's obviously another side. Rotherham's strengths, according to Ian Bradley, he said, squad togetherness, high press, relentless work rate, goal threat from all over the pitch. Weaknesses, he says, susceptibility to pace on occasions and weakness in cutting out crosses, especially right-sided. Olasunde, I think, is an excellent player, but he does charge forward, and that has left them short of cover, something that Ian tweeted us through. And I think Ogbene is a player that, again, Ian said, tries his best, not best defensively. I'd agree with pretty much all of that. I think overall, though, they have so much attacking talent, and their style of play can change up if they need to. Physically very strong.
I think they're a bit like what Barnsley were last season.
I'd agree.
To that, with that like they say, there's attacking impetus all over the pitch. They've got that. If you need to get a goal, you can trust them to get it, really, with the amount of chances they create.
Yeah,
Freddie Ladapo has done well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was that was talked about. Like, is that going to work out? I think yes, it has, and they've created 234 chances this season. That's the best in the division. Their XG is also the best in the division, 69. Their goals for is 61, which is the joint second best. I think only behind Peterborough, joint probably with Oxford. Defensively, they've done pretty well, but one of their biggest, and if not the biggest strength, is away from home this season. They've got 33 points from 18 games, the best record in the division. So no surprises to see them right up there. They need to probably be a bit better at home. They're a bit sort of mid-table-ish when you look at the home record, but yeah, not too much to complain about. Shrewsbury Town, plenty to complain about.
Oh.
Weaknesses, we'll start with them because, I mean, we talk about a strength is the way they're run, but weakness is the way they're run on the pitch. I think tactically, Sam Ricketts has been setting them up in a pretty negative way all season. If you listen to the Salopcast lads, they have been spitting feathers and pulling their hair out at times just with the way that they know they've got a better squad available to them than the way that they've been playing. But they've created only 131 chances. That is the 22nd. Only Bolton, I think, are worse than that.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells its own story. Their XG would put them 19th. Their goals for would put them 22nd because they only scored 31 goals this season. But I'm not going to suggest that that's because they don't have the players capable of scoring. I mean, you know, if you get rid of Fajiri Okunabiri, who is, you know, Shrewsbury fans saying the most natural goal scorer they've seen at the club in maybe a decade, perhaps. I mean, that might be over-egging it, but I think that's not that unfair. And, you know, they're 16th place, and the data suggests they should be doing worse than that, not better.
Do you think Callum Lang struggled to adjust to League One a bit? I know he had his injury, which would have helped, but
I don't think so. I think he's a better player. I think in a different team, Callum Lang would be superb at this level. And I think Shrewsbury fans generally think his play is pretty good. But again, his best position is what? Probably number
inside
10?
Inside forward,
Yeah.
I think.
Left side, I'd say.
Yeah, left side cutting inside, but he's only got 3 goals.
Yeah, again though, it's in a team that is woefully lacking in creating chances, woefully lacking in goal scoring in general. So, biggest weaknesses I think is the way they've been is Sam Ricketts' tactics. I don't think you can say it's recruitment. I think it will be interesting to see going forward how they recruit because he doesn't use as much analysis as other teams now. He's
very old school. They're set up in an old school way, haven't they, Shrewsbury?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to work. We'll see. But they're a very well-run club. I think that is a huge strength. And long-term, that is more important than the short-term shortcomings of an individual manager's tactics. So
certainly,
that is something to bear in mind. But yeah, I think Shrewsbury fans have... and it can be a little bit disgruntled with the way their team has played this season. Southend United...
I just want to say, we continuously slate Southend United, so I'm actually going to start with the positives on this because there are some. Considering the situation they're in, they're actually 18th in the table to chances created, and their total of 39 goals is the 16th best. And I think the noteworthy points we should take out of Southend is, first of all, the performances of Stephen McLaughlin this season, who's probably been their player. And
Charlie Kelman's a bright prospect as well.
It's the youngsters. That's what you should celebrate. People like Els Wamono, Charlie Kelman, Terrell Lakebury as well. They've had to cope with a lot of young players this season who have looked quite decent at times. And yes, we know what the issues with Southend are, but there have been positives at times this season which the fans should definitely take. Well,
Leon Imber says on Twitter, Southend good, ever improving youth system, great players coming through such as Charlie Kelman, Tom Clifford, Lewis Gard and Tel Egbury. Weaknesses, depleted squad where pro players simply not good enough and finances don't help with that, weak particularly in midfield. So yes, I think defensively as well, just 85 goals conceded. It's been awful at the back, frankly. And there's talk this week as well, Sol Campbell gone missing, but we won't go into that one here now. But there is some talk about the future again being suspect from them in a management perspective as well as financially. So let's hope they recover from that. Sunderland, Chris, will have you do this one because they are 7th in the division. Obviously, a big strength is the fact that they've got only conceded 32 goals. But what do you think their big weaknesses are?
Well, we talked about expectation before with Blackpool, and I think that really does hit Sunderland. They are probably the definition of a sleeping giant in this league. Although maybe Portsmouth would take some issue with that, but Sunderland,
Ipswich as well.
but
I don't think either of those compared to Sunderland, if I'm honest. And not to be unfair, Portsmouth, if they got their ground sorted, could be as big as Sunderland, I reckon.
But either way,
Sunderland are huge.
I think it's that expectation that has done them, and I think that really they've not figured out their attacking options either. We saw last season they brought Wildrig in for silly money. That didn't work out, and I'm not sure they've quite sorted that out this season either.
Is Phil Parkinson a strength or a weakness? Because I'll sit on the fence here because I'm biased towards him due to watching him as a kid and stuff. But from your guys' neutral viewpoints, I'll start at you, Ed. Is he a strength or weakness?
Oh, I don't think he's that bad of a manager. I just don't. That's a really difficult one to actually decide on, really.
I think he's a good manager, but I don't think he's the right fit for Sunderland.
I think a lot of people would probably agree with that. Are the owners a strength or weakness? I mean, I think there's a lot going on behind the scenes that have really undermined the on the pitch stuff for Sunderland for a little while now.
I think they've got an owner that genuinely does care about the club. But again, like Phil Parkinson, I'm not sure he's the right fit for Sunderland. I think he's got the best will in the world, but I'm not sure he's got I don't know what it is that maybe not enough money, though I'm not entirely convinced it's that, but maybe just not the right mentality for it.
Don't know. Very difficult to say, but Sunderland, you feel, I don't know if recruitment, I've not been that
they're not bad
with their recruitment at all times.
But they're not a bad team.
No, they're not a bad team. Well, they're 7th, and all the metrics say that's roughly where they deserve to be this season, except defensively they're very strong.
Mm.
At home, they're 38 points from 19. We put them 4th or 5th, something like that. Away, they've not been that bad, 7th. So they are where they are. And I think what they need to get better at, I suppose, is finding a way to utilise their size and their pulling power to their advantage in a way that doesn't get players coming just for the money. And that's been a huge problem in the past. They've got players turning up there who think Sunderland's a club that's an easy ride. And that is something that needs to stop, and just a whole change of culture at the club from the Ellis Short years where they were a cash cow to be exploited, and it put them in a bit of jeopardy. So Tranmere, strengths and weaknesses. I won't mention the pitch because I was chastised for making a joke about that. So we'll keep it very much about the football. I like Mickey Mellon. He's a good manager.
Yep, I do.
They don't create enough chances, 131. And I think one of the big weaknesses as well is for any team that's come up as rapidly as they have, it's always challenging.
And they lost Norwood as well, which really has hit them.
Of course it has, yeah. I think, of course, you lose your talisman up front coming into League One after 2 playoff campaigns back to back. It's pretty tough.
I thought they overperformed last season. I was surprised that they did well enough to get in the playoffs.
They hit the form, and that's what takes you into the playoffs, isn't it? If you hit a good run around February, March time, and you just keep going, that momentum just carries you up. And I think a positive this season has probably been Kieran Morris and his performances. I think he's probably, I'd argue, he's their player of the season.
Manny Montfort's not been too bad as well. I think he's quite a key man still in that team. Not able to be as not able to get away being not quite as mobile as perhaps other defenders at this level, but still a big plus point. I think the biggest problem for them is they're not creating enough chances. Their XG is 40. They've actually underperformed that, but it would both leave them 20th, which is just safe. It's difficult. I think they are where they deserve to be, give or take maybe one or two places further up, and that is the thing. And so how this season ends could be quite dramatic for Tranmere, because
it's a bit of a shame. Bit of a shame it's all stopped right now and on the back of 3 wins, isn't it? Because you'd really What could they be like right now?
Exactly. Like you talk about momentum, it can be such a big thing. But we're going to end on Wycombe Wanderers. Let's get some comments from Chairboy Central on Twitter. Ed, you've got these.
So Chairboy Central got in touch with me and we asked him about the good and the bad. He said the good is fairly self-explanatory. What an unbelievable season. But special mention to Joe Jacobson, Darius Charles and Akinfenwa, who have been their 3 players of the season with a combined age of 102. And Charles has been playing with an arthritic hip, inspirational. So the bad for them would probably be their strength and depth, mainly at the back, which isn't good enough to sustain a push for that top 2. But that's fine because, look, they shouldn't be where they are anyway, let's be honest.
Well, let's be honest, we had them going down in the pre-season.
Thought they'd be here.
Yeah.
The Coup Higgs have saved the club and we owe them all the thanks in the world. Dread to think what would have happened without them. He's spot on.
Yeah. There's nothing I can add to that.
Gareth Ainsworth, I think, a huge strength, the stability that he brings. I will go on about this until I'm blue in the face. I think having a manager and having faith in him and giving him a period of time, you will get a club generally that's far better than one that isn't. And chopping and changing, I don't think works.
I did enjoy him on some sort of quiz night for QPR last night coming out.
Yes.
That was brilliant.
David Stockdale did it a few days ago, didn't he? I can't remember who he's dressed as. But Wycombe are just a really likeable club.
Yeah, a great home
for how they're run.
Well.
For how they're run, they're just so likeable.
Yeah, great at home. Great at home. Adams Park there, 42 points from 18. Only, as we say, Portsmouth have matched that this season. And I mean they're actually overachieving all their metrics. So the chances created would have them 11th, XG would have them 11th, XG against 13th, goals for 12th, goals against 10th, away form 14th. So that home form is what it is, and the togetherness of their squad, and just the unbelievable sort of courageous courage, and it's great. It's great to have that plucky, not little old Wycombe. It's not like that, but it is a club that's overachieving and doing it in the right way. So that's a good way to end this podcast. Hope you've enjoyed it, guys. Thank you, Ed.
Pleasure.
And Chris, of course, as well.
Yeah, always good fun.
Always good fun. Don't be too bleary-eyed from your spreadsheets, mate. I hope it all comes together.
I've got more today. Yay!
Oh, lovely. Lovely. Well, I'll have to be analysing some Belarusian Premier League stuff. It's literally that bad for football writers at the moment. Yeah.
Taiwan's going, if you're interested. I've been looking at the Taiwan League in the past.
No, they've got going, haven't they? Yeah.
Taiwan's off.
Oh, dear. Oh, no, I can't take that. I can just about... yeah, exactly. I can just about stomach Belarus, the Premier League. It's actually not bad quality, to be fair. But no one's going to watch it live. There's about 200 people in the stadiums. It's ridiculous.
Next week on the Belarus podcast.
Hopefully in a couple of weeks we've got the Bundesliga back, which would be quite nice to see. So we'll see how that goes.
We will. Let's hope football returns sooner rather than later. Let's hope everyone out there is doing okay. Stay safe, everyone. And we'll be back next week to look at League 2. Until then, goodbye.